Fragile. By Gillian Genser. November 2024.
We at Tangled want to acknowledge that we operate on unceded land that has been the home of indigenous peoples and nations long before colonial documentation of time, specifically the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit, people who continue to live and work here in what is currently known as Toronto or Tekaronto. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, as well as the meeting ground for the urban Indigenous Tekaronto community. Subsequent Indigenous peoples from around the world, as well as settlers, newcomers, folks who have been forced to relocate here as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and international forced labor trades, immigrants, refugees, and displaced peoples have been invited into this treaty in the spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered under Treaty 13 and operates under the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt. This is a treaty between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe and a mutual agreement between nations for sharing land and resources, and that importantly, we all have a responsibility to care for this land and for those who live here. To honor both the past and living traditional caretakers of this land, we must take a firm stance towards Indigenous sovereignty. As arts workers, we are participating in an arts and culture sector that has actively erased, dehumanized, and displaced Indigenous peoples and stories in Canada. Part of working towards the complex concept of decolonization means being accountable to the systematic relationship we all have with one another in the arts and what power curating stories of our culture and its heritage has. We do not take this responsibility lightly. As our partners at Bodies in Translation remind us, access to the arts is access to life. Disability is a colonial construct. We at Tangled want to ensure the work of access and decolonization are always in relation. We hope those who visit our space, engage our programs, and participate in our community recognize the interconnected ways colonization has impacted disability. Access is an act of resistance.
Symbiotic relationship with the planet. So it's actually incredibly ironic that this was the piece that nearly killed me. So when I began this piece, I had been looking for the right material to make him. Originally, he was going to be the mate to Lilith, and if you're strolling around the gallery, you'll see her out there. She's made of eggshells. I wanted to make the mate, but I couldn't make it out of eggs. They were just the wrong shape for a man. Those lovely rounded shapes belong to women, and I couldn't find his shape. And then I came across his muscle shells, and the very first pieces I put together on him were two whole muscle shells that formed the shoulder blades. And I went, oh, this is perfect. And of course, being first man, he would be a black man. And there were these beautiful black muscle shells, and their lovely striations formed the muscle fiber so beautifully. So I promised myself that this piece would be true to itself. I would not put anything fake in there. He would be entirely made from muscle shells. So this meant I had to hunt and find ones often, that had odd little shapes, because I couldn't form every crevice of his body from a standard shell. So I was often looking for the ones that were breaks, or in the case of his buttocks is a lovely example. There's some indents there because this poor little muscle must have been broken at some point and healed itself, and it caused this indent that formed the buttocks very well. So this is how he began. You can see when I first was making him that he was very fleshy and robust. As I became ill, and I will tell you that this piece took me 15 years to complete. He was 7.5 years of actual labor over that time. But one of the reasons he became very slow at the end was that by then I had a swollen brain, I had dementia, I had very little memory or ability to function, and I had lost what is so essential for artists to work, which is inspired delight, because heavy metals, as they do, had stolen my mental health. So I was in a terrible state and trying to think. By the last days of working on this piece, um, I was still not diagnosed. It was a very delayed diagnosis, but heavy metal poisoning is not something that doctors ever think to look for. It's so rare and strange to happen. So I was declining rapidly, and I thought I was dying, which I expect I was had it gone on much longer. But um, I kept thinking, I have worked on this piece so long. I just want to finish him before I die. I had no idea it was the piece that was killing me. So I kept on with it. I would go down into my studio every day, and I had spatial injury and I couldn't think very well and I couldn't hold thought. So I would be trying to understand where something had to go, what I had to do. I would spend hours looking at one spot, and finally I'd have an idea of what I needed to do with it. And then I'd know I'd need a tool for it. And so I would start thinking, okay, maybe I need my tweezers, and I would be feeling around on my desk looking for tweezers because I knew if I took my eye off that piece, I was going to forget what I wanted to do. So I'd start saying it out loud. I go, tweezers, tweezers, tweezers. And then I couldn't remember what the word tweezers meant. And then I'd finally have to look away and I'd grope around and I would end up picking up pliers or something. And I'd have to start over again. So it was a dreadful endurance to get through this piece. And I did make a confession when I was talking to people here yesterday, and this is something that only another artist can truly understand. But when I was finally diagnosed, he was not quite finished, and I still finished the piece. So even at that point, I knew it was poisoning me, but I couldn't not finish him. But the difference was that every day then I would go to my studio and I would put my hand on the door handle and I would just start to cry because I felt like, those people going into I always say they were like the divers who went under Chernobyl. I knew I was going into poison, and then that was just so hard, and I would be bawling the whole time I was working on him, but I did get him done. You can see the progress in the piece. Now I'm going to turn him around, and I think I can turn him here now. So we have, oh, it's not working, Sean. Is it just these keys forward and back, or is it up and down? We're kind of blocked by all of that, so it's probably not supposed to be there.
Okay, now you can go back.
Okay, yeah. So there we go. So there's the front of him up there now. And you guys are welcome to come up and closer afterwards. I'm going to be dismantling him and there'll be little pieces to look at here. By the time you can see, I started working on the front and you could start to see my deterioration in the piece. He just started to look like a corpse. His knees partially missing. This flesh is just looking like it's corpse-like. So even his head, he just started to look more like a skull. I think it just began to, what was happening to me just started to show through the piece. So I'm going to go back here again. Adam has a key, and his keyhole is in his rectum. So I'm going to put the key in. And I don't have good light here, and I'm going to see what I'm doing. I turn the key, and up goes his penis. Adam began from this wonderful penis. I always say men grow from their penises, and it was the first thing I found. It's a wonderful pearl. I'm going to take it out, which it actually shows you another lovely aspect of this piece, which is that it is gender fluid. And now it's a woman. And there's the hole, and there's a lovely labial slit showing here, and this little tiny muscle that forms this pouch. And this lovely pearl, which forms this penis, I found exactly as it is. It just looked like a perfect little penis, and it was on a strand of pearls. And it matched Lilith. And I think that was the inspiration. I went, oh, Lilith wants a mate. So, so that's how that happened. Once his penis is up, we can open a little secret door in his thigh here. And I'm just going to open it. And there are his testicles. Okay, yeah, they're a little off to the side. His legs are crossed. Maybe it's an evolutionary thing, but there they are. They are two lovely black pearls. This makes men uncomfortable sometimes, but the other side of his key is a spoon, and you can, in fact, scoop them out. Let's see where we go. And there they are. Yeah. So I'll just put that back. This piece relies on magnets, so that's how everything is going in and out so easily. Now I'm going to open his chest. And inside we have his lovely organ structure. Now I haven't been good here, so let me just take us through. There was his back. There was the key going in his behind there. And there was the penis up. And here we are with the testicles showing. So now here we are opening him up. And now this piece can come out. Now what I'm not going to show you in this photograph is how I get to this place, because what I actually have to do is pull his head off. Whoop. Oh, I forgot to take the bug out. Okay, never mind. We'll put him back after. But there's a lovely Dobson fly here that slips in, and it got pulled out with him. But there it is. So I had to take his head off. And now I can take out this organ structure. So this is a little amusement, because we, talk about woman being made from Adam's rib, and I say, oh no, in fact, Adam's organ structure is made from beaver. So he's a little bit rude. So there's the organ structure. This sort of visceral cover that's on the front is made from sterling silver. I was trying to form a lovely filigree structure that was going to be his lungs. That was the original intent when I was creating this work, but I did abandon it. And instead we have lungs here, which are formed from a seashell called paper shell nautilus. And I'm going to move us along. So we're there, and we're looking at that. And this is going to come off. So I'm just going to pull off the front. And maybe I'll lay this out here so people can look afterwards. This little bug is called a Dobson fly. It's actually native to Ontario. I have switched its mandibles. Normally they're splayed outwards, and I have pulled them upwards because they kind of imply the tendons in his neck, but also they give us this sense of the symbiotic relationship to the natural world. So I'm going to take the bug out, and I'll do that here too. So now we're looking at the rest of his organs. So one by one they come out, and I'm going to start with his lungs. And I think there's an image of one of the lungs. They do come out, and also they open. So I'm just going to put them down. they open up, and inside there's a little bit of a creature called sea glass sponge. And I'm sorry, I don't have the Latin names for them. But it just gives you a little sense of the internal structure of the lungs there. So there they are. Then we have, there's his bowel on the bottom. It's made from seaworm tubes. And his liver on the side is made from the hearing cochlea of the beaver of this beaver's skull. And I think I slowly start, there's his heart. So hang on, I'm just going to take these guys out. So there's the bowel comes out. There is the hearing cochlea liver, and on it, inside, there is a little pearl, which is the gallbladder. This is the stomach, pancreas, and spleen made of various seashells and little bone parts. Down in the bottom, his bladder is made from a little shrew skull. And this is his heart. So I'm taking out the heart, and we're looking at it there opened up. So inside his heart, there's this little seashell called a lamp shell. And it's very fragile, because his heart is very fragile. And inside of it, because it opens as well, there is an opal. So opals symbolize hope. And so this is the hope in his heart that is left from another creature that once resided there and lived in the very spot where that opal was. So it's the hopes of that creature melding with the hopes in his heart and a hope for the planet. So those are his internal parts. There's one more thing to go. We're going to open up the back of his head. Now the back of his head, okay, so these were the pictures of the heart. And there it is taken out. We're looking at that structure. And the bladder gone. And there's the back of this structure, which is actually quite lovely. And I'm going to show that for the people online here. And now we're going to look at the top of his head. And you can see that it's been split open. And it looks like, it's a walnut, but it looks rather brain-like in there. That's actually not what his little brain inside is made from. I'm going to open it up, and there's his brain. And I'm going to open that here too. And it's made from a seashell. And it's in good. Okay, hang on. I don't know why. I've never had this stuck in here before. All right. This is another thing for me to do. Oh, there we go. So this is the little brain, and it also opens up, and inside there is a butterfly pupa. So it's his metamorphosis, and it sits in a little world of, so there's the butterfly pupa, and inside there you can see some of the sterling silver, which I have made to kind of look like that interconnected system that, he is thinking through. And that is Adam. So if there are any questions, please. Yes, honey.
You've probably been asked this before, but now that you're handling the piece, like, are you still poisoning yourself, or have you been coated in some kind of protective layer?
I was able to hear that. So the poisoning, there is no problem to touch a mussel shell. Yeah, you can do that, as you know, in the restaurant when you eat your mussels, which you may never eat again now that I've told you. But the problem is that I was grinding them. And more than that, I was grinding them with the dentist drill, which spins at a very high speed and creates a very fine particulate. So it wasn't just that I might have been breathing it. I actually did have a fan system. But in fact, apparently most of my exposure probably went through my skin. So it was an cumulative exposure. So you can imagine over 15 years. But probably the worst was that after a very long time of working, I decided to clean my venting system. And assuming that I was dealing with something that was from nature, I wasn't worried about the contents. So I wasn't careful. And I started to feel very sick while I was outside emptying it. And I passed out. And when I came to, I had lost most of my hearing. And I was a week in bed and very weak and sick. So that was the first extremely hard hit. And it would have been then, I guess, a fairly massive exposure at that point. And in a body that already had a large accumulation. So, yeah, that's the story of that. But I have to tell you guys that maybe it's part of the way we learn to accept the things that happen to us in this life. But I often say that maybe I was just a fragile place that the natural world could break through and have its voice be heard. These muscles live silently screaming. What I went through was hell. And, just to say on the surface I had dementia, or that I was weak, or that I couldn't hear people, or that I was passing out, or that I was in pain all the time, you just don't begin to know the depths of that hell. And then, those are just words on the surface, but then you turn and you realize, there's no wonder whales teach themselves. What have we done to this planet? So it is so much in my heart that people may finally begin to hear the voice of the natural world, to hear through me what happened here and what it means, and that we must become more thoughtful, more aware. More than that, we must reconnect. We must find our way back to our ability to touch nature, to be in tune with nature, to experience nature completely with ourselves as a part of it. So anyway, that was a long answer. So sorry. Is there any other question?
I have a technical question. How do you preserve things like the intestines and where do these intestines come from again?
The seaworm tubes.
Yeah,
so
how do you get it so that it doesn't decay or?
Well, all of these are calcium-based structure. They're just like bone. They're going to be there forever. Yeah, it's not tissue. I'm not working with formaldehyde, and So yeah, no, that those are. Even the bug. What I'm dealing with is the exoskeleton. There's nothing left internally of living organ. Yeah. Yes, Fee.
Is there any significant stories of, I asked this when I saw you first about any stories and memories and remember collecting these parts?
Okay, I'm going to need shot. My hearing is poor, so I just need and you're very quiet.
No, it's okay. So the question, and also just for folks online, was as you were collecting the material, specifically the shells in this case, did you have any specific memories or any interesting kind of anything interesting as you were collecting the shells? Did I capture that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't suppose many, except they used to laugh at me in Chinatown, which is where I used to go, because if you buy the shells, they were always bundled up. If you would buy them in the grocery store, and honestly, in my heart, I didn't really want to kill them, so I was going to Chinatown and buying all the dead ones, which are poisonous, and they're all looking at me like, "Are you nuts?" And I'd be scooping through and scooping through. Oh no, I only want these ones. So that they're looking at me. And so, but yeah, and I was willing to pay for them. So that was even stranger. But yeah. And anyone else? Well, then I thank you for that, and I have another piece to show you. So if you are up for it, I will bring her out. Okay, beautiful. Give me 1 sec. Please come up and have a look if you like, and I'll go get her, and then I'll have to put her back, this guy back together. So. I probably don't have to say it, but please don't touch. Yeah. Okay. Oh, no, I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
I'm lovely. All right. God, you did. Oh, God, you. Wow. Finally made it. You finally made it. Okay, I got to go get another sculpture, so I'll give it to where you are. So, no, not at all. I'm glad you're here. Hang on, I've got to go get the next sculpture, so please come on so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Okay.
And I saw your work at another gallery before.
Did you at Lyceum?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You okay with that?
Oh, yeah. I believe I am. Why are these things sticking? There we go. Got her. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's better. Well, on top of that, I have a receipt reserved for a friend who hasn't shown up yet, so come and take it. Right here. See that one that says reserved?
Yeah.
Do you need any help, Gillian?
No, because I just have to put her back together, and then I'll be good.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Hot.
These lungs are so amazing.
My fingers are not very adept this evening, so I'm having trouble. Happy to see you, honey. I'm not putting them in the best order.
trouble with removing the brain. Men get swollen heads sometimes.
Is that what it is? God. Thank you. I'm just going to pop that back in. I'm going to put the bug back in. Oh, I think I'll do that at the end. So let me just put his head back on. His body. Okay, just have to give him a little hand job. Oh my. There we go. I'm just going to go put him away in his case and I'll be right back. Okay. Sean, are you near? I think, is the next piece just on there? Okay.
Bit of a separate slideshow. So let me just, sorry, yep. Okay, you should be all set.
Yep.
Yes,
That's
okay, great.
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. This piece is one of my favorites. Oh yes, definitely let the so-and-so go around the room. So this piece is a depiction of Mother Nature. Actually, art is on him. She is on her knees and she is cradling her own dying body. I call this piece The Pity. It is a translation from La Pieta, where Mary is holding Christ off the cross. And I feel as though we have crucified Mother Nature, and she only has her own self to hold herself. So you can see in her from this body and this structure that there is a kind of lump here. This is where her neck should have protruded. Instead, there's this ethereal head leaning from outside her body. She's already left her body, and she's looking upon herself with compassion and pity. This piece has been structured from a wildebeest skull and wildebeest horn. Her hair is made from wasp nest. And this arm is a water buffalo horn. So I'm going to remove the horn first. And we have a look at her internal parts. This lovely breast was a shell that I found a long time ago on a beach. It was so beautiful, and there was only one. And I kept saying, what am I going to do with one? I need the pair. And I could never find anything that, but it was waiting for this piece. And so there it is. It's her one remaining breast. And oh, there's a piece that normally goes in there that isn't there. There's usually a little honeybee in there. So anyway, that's the breast. In the front is her liver here. This has been made from a Brazil nut. And if I take it off on the inside, there's the gallbladder, a little pearl on the inside. Over here is her spleen. Now, I'm not taking you through these. There's this, and now her breast is gone. And there's the liver. And they're kind of lit up on the side. You can see the spleen. The spleen is a little mud wasp pupa. I watched it for maybe a year and a half. I didn't want to disturb it. I didn't know it was living. But I eventually realized that the spiders had long since invaded it, and it was what it was. So I did take it to use for this. And I'll just put that down there. It'll be something you can look at. This is the digestive tract. It's made from I'm sorry. It's made from driftwood roots. And there's a little dried berry here on the side, which is the pancreas. But now we come to the lungs. And this is something that I really try to speak about a lot. This piece, as I was saying when I made Adam, I was looking at religion and how that had taken us down such a wrong path. But as I started to really contemplate where humanity had gone wrong, it went further for me. It went past that. It was a question of how did we even get to creating a religion like that in the first place? Where did we go wrong? And for me, it began with agriculture. And these lungs, her dying lungs, that look like they're deflating and gasping their last breath, are the nasal passages of a slaughtered lamb. And every time I open this piece, I feel that last faint plea. And it makes me think so much about the wrong we have done and how we got there. And I have to say what I finally felt was that when we turned to another living being and we said to them, I will feed you, I will protect you, I will care for you, they understood through the most fundamental law of nature, they understood love. And we betrayed that love. And not only did we betray it by killing them and eating them, but we probably did it in a cruel manner. And so in that moment, we redefined love for all of us. We created social psychopathy. Why should we be surprised at the places that humanity has come to after this became our beginnings? We created a separateness. We created what we thought was our own little ecosystem. We would no longer be hunters and gatherers dependent on what nature would provide and not provide. But instead, we wrenched it away and said, we will control it. So much harm has come from these choices. So I'm going to take the lungs out now. There they are. I'll put them down. Her bow is made also from driftwood. I'm going to take it out. Behind it, you can see her kidneys. And as every woman here can understand, a bladder the size of a peanut. Well, I will leave them in the body. Here is her heart. It is made to look like a wasp nest hanging from a branch. The lovely branches that it's hanging from actually form correctly, I believe, the vessels of the heart. It's on a little nut, and I have covered it in wasp paper. Oh my gosh, I'm been awful. I keep forgetting this screen, don't I? So there it is on the screen. We've seen the stomach, and there were the lungs, and there's the bowel, and the kidneys and bladder, and there's the heart. And now there's the heart up close. So, and the heart also opens up. So I'm going to just open it now. And inside in silver, I have created the interior of the wasp nest. So I'll put that down as well. Now there's another special part to her. Her body is distorted. Off to the side, we see this little doorway, which is the foot of a conch. When a conch closes its shell, it has a foot that closes the door for it and closes it tight. This foot of the conch is here. There's the little door. You see I have done some silver work on it. And what you can't see so easily here is held up to the light. I can't show you. Lovely, lovely amber colors come through, but I'll put it down there for you to see. So inside here, we're going to look at her reproductive system. I fear it is a bad little joke on my part, and it happens through many of the pieces. Their beaver is a beaver. But in this case, her beaver is a muskrat. So this time it's a muskrat. So this muskrat shell is showing her reproductive system. On the back, I have used the hearing cochlea. So let me move ahead here. We've taken the muskrat skull out, and there it is. On the back is the hearing cochlea form the ovaries. And I have made sterling silver fallopian tubes. And on the front, we have this little door. And when we open the door, inside is the remains of a bee. So the fertility of this earth is now dead in her womb. And that is the pity. And are there any questions?
How do you take such beautiful like documentation, like your photos? How do you do so?
Oh, with a lot of struggling. So I do them myself, although my tech support guy is in the room right here. I don't know how I would have gotten through a lot of my editing if I hadn't had my help. But I don't consider myself a photographer, and I muddled my way through, but somehow they seem to arrive. So, thank you. Yes.
Where did you learn how to do filigree work?
I learned it myself. Yeah. I was, oh, and there is my very late husband entering the room, and I'm going to draw attention to it. There's my piece Lilith out there, was the first piece that I made. And I felt as a goddess that she should have filigree, silver, beautiful silver work, and I loved filigree, and I learned the skill for that piece. Since then, I have been doing quite a lot of it. Some of the pieces, my silver work is much more subtle now. It is, you have to look for it. It's hidden. But I feel that, the reason that the silver and the treasures are there is to help elucidate, remind us of what is truly treasure. Treasure is defined by things that are becoming scarce, things that are scarce, and what could be more scarce and more beautiful than these objects from nature. So that is the reason I continue to do it. Yeah. Yes, I'm.
Can you tell us about how you grew up in terms of how you gained all this knowledge besides from studying environments? It's like a wonderland. Just because I didn't grow up with a lot of nature, I'm just discovering a lot of that now. And, yeah.
That's a hard question. I think it turns out in life we are placed on a path, even if we weren't planning it, and just find ourselves there. I grew up in a doctor's home. I remember as a child being very fascinated by the medical books with all the illustrations. So probably there is some of that involved when I'm working with anatomy. But also, how does not any of us, thank you, how does not any of us feel connection to nature? I mean, I think we all go out there and see these beautiful things. I think as an artist, you can't walk in nature and feel modest and humbled, because how could I ever make anything as beautiful as nature makes? Nature is extraordinary. Sometimes I feel like a bit of a fraud because I have taken all these things and how can I really claim the work? Because this beautiful thing came from nature. I didn't actually make it. So, but this is truly a woman's approach to art. I think we are naturally gatherers. We go and we look for things. We bring them together. We form things with them. We construct from what's around us, and try to make sense of things. And that's really a women's approach. I can say if you had all noticed this wall, it is a dedication to my brother who passed away. He was a wonderful artist. He was a very male artist, and so he was a designer and constructor. He decided in advance what he was going to do, and then he would want to make that happen. And so that's a very male approach, I think. to the world, and it's just different. And this is just very female, I think. So it just sort of naturally comes together.
I wondered if you could elaborate on that. Part of the question that I had is that when you look at your work and see how it all comes together, it seems just so perfect. It just feels impossible that it didn't exist already as it is. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the coming together. So
you have no idea how hard that is.
But the materials speak to you, and then it evolves or things come
Absolutely.
together.
Absolutely. So I try to listen to each thing that I find from nature. Something I often think about is, I'm finding dead things that have passed. But reality is, we never understand a story. We never even have a story until a book comes to the end. And then we go, oh, there was the story. Unless that book comes to a close, we don't know the story. Each of these now dead creatures was a story, and their story is ready to be told. When I take these things and hold them and think about them, they are offering me guidance. And it's not a conscious cerebral activity. It's an act of allowing it to come together. You just go for something, and then something calls you to look over here and do this, and you go and you do that. And it's a dance, and you just channel, and it comes through you, and the pieces arrive. But they don't arrive quickly, partly because I'm slow to perceive, and I need time to allow all of that process to play out. And partly sometimes because some of the pieces are missing, and I must go on journeys looking for what came next. So you wait for things to arrive. These pieces average about 2 to 2.5 years each to come together. So except for Adam, who I told you was so very long, but you can count up my life's work out there.
So, Jill,
yes.
we actually have one question from the chat.
Yes, yes.
And then we'll get to you. But Jack, do you want to ask that question in the chat first?
Yeah. So, do you perceive the anatomy as great from taking pieces, or do they find the way for the pieces
So the question is, do you perceive like the anatomy as basically to help, like kind of helping to define the role within the sculpture, or do you shape the piece to fit the anatomy of the sculpture? Good question.
That is a large back and forth. That is one of the reasons that Adam took so long, because oftentimes when I would find something that would change the anatomy, I would have to rebuild his entire body to fit the new piece. So that, because I'm not a pre-planner like my brother was, and the pieces just arrived, this constant evolution and this going back and forth and changing things happens along. But the anatomy is critical, because the anatomy is showing each part being another being, or parts of other beings as being all part of us. And so it for me, it's really important that it's all there, and that I give it its proper place. Yeah.
Are there places within nature that hold a particular allure or significance to you?
Places in nature where I like to go to.
Places you revisit, places you think of a special quality or something like that.
It's not for a place, because I think anywhere in nature has an incredible, beautiful qualities. But there is one beach I always go to, and you wouldn't believe it's so fucking far away. It's all the way out in Consacon, which is like Prince Edward County. And anytime I'm struggling to finish a piece, I have to get in a car and drive 2.5 freaking hours to go to this little strip of beach that no one would walk on it, and doesn't even go for that long. But that beach has finished every sculpture I have. Every time I need something, I go to Consacon, and then it's waiting for me. It's like, oh, it's washed up. So it, it happens that way. But thank you for that question. Yeah. Anyone else? Then please enjoy the rest of the pieces. Please ask me any questions you might like about the other works, and help yourself to a so-and-so, which is a lovely drink here, and thank you for coming.
And Gillian, I just want to say thank you to you as well. And for folks who haven't had a chance to visit the show yet, Gillian's created these very beautiful audio descriptions that pair to each piece. And I highly recommend checking them out. Whether or not you need the description, they also act as really beautiful stories that pair with each work. And Gillian spent a lot of time working on them, and I highly recommend checking that out.
And they were made initially to be descriptive audio for blind people. This was a wonderful experience for me here to really take in the ability to share with everybody, for access to everybody, and to take the time to really think about how, when we look at art, it really is a moment as we look at the visuals, and the rest of the journey is inside. So it suddenly wasn't such a far stretch to say, can I give you this surface description, and will you go on this journey with me? So it was lovely to create these audio descriptions, but you will notice if you listen to them that they have also been designed so that a person who cannot see will be able to visualize the piece. And each piece on the wall behind it, you will see some writing and a QR code, and that QR code will take you to the audio description. So.
Tangled Art Plus Disability logo.